Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus A330 pilot and welcome to our first flight in the Aerosoft / ToLiss A340-600 in Flight Simulator 2024. Today we are going to do a classic Lufthansa trip with the flight LH400 from Frankfurt to New York's John F. Kennedy Airport, where we will have to deal with an inoperative ILS being forced to do an RNAV approach instead. Also, I am going to talk quite a little bit about the ToLiss Airbus itself and a couple of the conversations that I've had with the guys from ToLiss after my initial video. So, exciting times ahead. I'd say we are going to jump right into this and see how the first study level long-haul Airbus in Microsoft Flight Simulator is going to do. And with that, welcome to the flight deck of our Airbus A340. It is rather cold and rather dark in here right now, so I'd say we are just gonna go ahead and start with the setup straight away. So the engine master levers are off, the start selector is in norm, weather radar is turned off, landing gear lever down, and the wipers are off. Now we are going to check the battery voltage. We need at least 25.5 on each, which we do. And then we can go ahead and start our Airbus up. Now, while everything is booting, let's just go ahead and turn all those lights up already. Quite a couple of them down here. I really don't know, it's such a bad habit of Airbus pilots to turn the display brightness down. That used to be a thing back in the day of CRT displays, but definitely no longer is nowadays. But many still do it, so here we go. Okay, lovely. So the displays are coming to life, and with the boot sequence now finished, let's go ahead and ensure we've got a frequency selected, 22.8 in today's case. With the loudspeakers up, then we can do the APU fire test like this, and since it is rather cold outside, let's go ahead and start up that APU. So master switch on, then the starter. There's a little fun fact: if you press the starter before the 3 seconds are elapsed in the real world, it's still going to engage, but you can, or rather in the ToLiss you have to wait a little bit, but not too big of a critique point here, it's just a little thing with the plane. Alright, so ADS 1, 2 and 3 are coming online. And while we're waiting for everything to boot up, let's go ahead and make some good use of our time and run right down into the electronic flight bag. We'll start with the SimBrief OFP, where we are going to download our SimBrief OFP down here. And I am going to disable the option down there, and here we go. So this is planned at 281 passengers like this. And our zero fuel weight is planned as 238.8, which is about 25 tons of cargo or so. So let's put 8,000 in the front, then we can put, what's that, 17,000 in the back. And then we'll have to have a look at the fuel in a few moments. But first of all, let's apply these load values, and then we can have a look through our flight plan. So let's first of all find our en route chart so that I can give you guys an idea of what we are about to do today. So loads of NOTAMs that we gotta click ourselves through. I wish that there was a scroll bar or something, that would be nice. Okay, and here we go. So here's what our route of flight looks like. We are departing Frankfurt northbound and then heading across Manchester, heading across the northern part of Ireland, Northern Ireland, and then across Nut Track Alpha southbound to Newfoundland, and then all the way down into New York. Now, looking into the significant weather chart, we are crossing the same jet stream twice on our way up, with a little bit of chance for some turbulence on the way up. That's probably that one here, area number 4, moderate turbulence, and then we have the same thing again after 20 to 30 west, and then on the other end side. So looking at the high-level SIGVIX chart on the other side, again a little bit of turbulence from about, what's that, let it be 35 west until we make landfall, and then, well, on the arrival into New York, we're looking at occasional CBs. So overall, the weather is actually quite okay. Now let's go ahead and have a look at the local weather forecasts. And here we are. So, arriving in New York. Currently the weather is 180-16, light rain, broken clouds 300. Overall not so good visibility. Surface visibility 4 miles. And, well, for the RNAV approach, that actually makes it quite interesting. Also, do note that in the forecast over here, 170-17 gust 26, but wind shear is expected. In 2,000 feet, we've got wind at 200 degrees with 55 knots, making this rather interesting. Also note that the general forecast goes into the direction of 170 degrees, 190 degrees-ish, and the runway is a 22 over there in New York, so that's going to be quite a strong crosswinds here, with gusts up to 40 knots for the day. Now, our alternate Bradley International is much better. I mean, still gusty, but overall much better weather conditions. Then we got Boston, which is pretty much the same thing, but at least they have so many runways that you can just land into the wind in any case. And then we also have Washington Dulles, which isn't much better, and directly cross as well. Philadelphia, same thing. So overall, not the best weather crossing the Atlantic today. On the other hand side, then we got Shannon, which is quite okay on our way out on the Atlantic. That's our forecast for today. And then on the other side, we have St. John's. Well, not exactly nice, but acceptable. Okay, so with all of that in mind, let's head right to the very top of our flight plan and have a look at what we're gonna do. We're departing Frankfurt at 10:00 and arriving on time in New York's JFK airport. The weights are not critical, however, landing weight is something we're going to keep an eye on. We are 10 tons below the maximum landing weight, and we will definitely be taking extra fuel today. Cruising level 340, later on 36 and 380, and then we can go down into the fuel section. And down here we got 84.8 plus taxi, so call that 86 tons rounded. I want half an hour extra. That's another 4 tons. So we're looking at basically 90 tons of fuel. Okay, and I think that's our final fuel decision down here. So let's go ahead and load those 90 tons. Then we can do a quick refuel down there. We can apply these load values, and then everything is done and loaded. Well then, by now the APU has started, so we can turn on the APU bleed, and then we can have a look into our aircraft's technical status here. Recall 1, 2, 3. It's looking good. It's an A340-600, and that's with the Rolls-Royce Trent 556 engines. Enough databases up to date. And we've got nothing on the MEL. It's just a little late here. 10:00 should be our departure. Let's just reset that. Give me something like 9:40. That's better, isn't it? Okay, cool. So that stuff is done. Then let's go ahead and get going with our preliminary performance figures and the ACAS initialization. So let's bring up the third CDU down here, and I did have an interesting conversation with ToLiss in regards to what's supposed to be simulated and what's not supposed to be simulated there. Some of you will probably remember that I complained in yesterday's video that they advertised to have 3 complete MCDUs simulated. You will probably remember that part from my previous video. If not, then here it is. So over here it says 3 fully functional, fully independent MCDUs. I put that as they're not fully functional because they don't have systems like the CMS, like the satellite phone. They don't have the backup enough up here. But when I talked to ToLiss, they actually just meant with that they have the 3rd unit down there. You will remember that the competitor does not have the 3rd MCDU simulated at all, and that is what they meant with it. So that's ToLiss's view on that. Personally, I think you can also read that different from the product page, but they said it was for simplification. They mean with that they have a 3rd MCDU down here simulated, and that's it. So I just want to put that on the video because I think it's just fair to mention the developer's point of view on that point. Alright, lovely. So let's go right down into the ATSU. Then we've got the AOC menu, and we can do the flight initialization down there. So, flight plan data link in progress. And while that's happening, we can already go into the weather and ATIS screen and request our weather over there as well. So let's just get the current METARs. So, Meta Frankfurt. 2703, light showers of rain, few clouds, broken clouds, 5 degrees, 1022. So let's go ahead and dial up 1022 down here. Up here. Oh, that was a little fast. Here we go, 1022. And that side as well, 1022. Perfect. Okay, so that stuff is up here. Then let's go ahead and do our takeoff performance calculation. And this is something that I do really like about the ToLiss. So we got Frankfurt. We'll take runway 25 center. We'll do a 100-meter intersection takeoff there. It automatically loads up the weather. We are going to select engine anti-ice on and a wet runway. It has the weights. Let's just check. Takeoff weight 327.4. In here we got 328.6, that's good enough. And everything else is auto, compute. Flaps 2, flex 67, speeds are looking good. 373 meters stop margin. And this is a very nice thing, because this output screen here is pretty much identical to the actual Airbus tools. So that's really nicely done for both the takeoff and the landing performance calculator. Also, something that you will probably appreciate is the checklists, because the real-world Airbus checklist is now available as a download on flightsim.to, so that you can actually get that for the EFB as well. Lastly, let's go ahead and set up our Navigraph screen. So we got Echo Delta Delta Foxtrot, and we can go to the charts over here. We'll take the taxi charts, and we can go all the way down to the parking stands east A340, this one. And then we can also go for the SID chart, Oboka 3 Whiskey, which is that one. And a quick thing that I want to mention over here, because that is something where ToLiss and me disagreed upon, but I do want to share their point of view, is that I said in my previous video that it is not possible to pin charts in this. And technically speaking, I stand with that claim, but ToLiss has pointed out that they do see that recent chart box down here as a replacement for being able to pin charts. So they say, well, you just open something, then you have it down here as well, and therefore, according to them, yes, you are kinda able to pin something. Now, you may agree or disagree on that. I want to share both sides of the story over here so that you can make your own picture of that and judge it the way that you feel is right. Okay. So we've got these two things up here. Alright, then I'd say now that the EFB is done, we can just run over here again. We got the oxygen pressure, which is checked. We got the hydraulic quantities, which are checked. Then we got the engine oil, which is full. The flaps are up, and that agrees with the lever. Spoilers are retracted. Then let's release that parking brake and test the alternate brakes, which is looking good. And then the parking brake is set again. Okay, lovely. So all that good stuff is now done. Well, finally up here, flight plan is in. Over here, it's uplinked a little bit too many things for my taste, but I do think there's an option about that. So, let's just see. I think it's under settings or accounts. Can't show you that right now because things like my SimBrief ID are on there, so I can't open that, but I do think there are some options where you can control what is uplinked over here, because the real one would only give you from to, and perhaps the flight number depending on the software version installed. But okay, that's it for the time being. Now, let's go right up over here again and start with a bit of a setup. So this is pretty much the standard Airbus setup. You are probably very familiar with that by now, so I'm not going to explain every single one step over here. So, LFDC page. Why is battery number 1 not charging? Now it is. Okay. Well, that shall be fine enough for me. Refueling is finished, so let's go ahead and turn all those pumps on. Like that. Fire tests are looking good. And the right hand side is all set. Make sure that we are listening to the PA on that one. CBR test is checked, and that's looking good. Alright, so on the front over here we got the clock. Now something that's kind of confuses me is why the clock cannot be moved in GPS mode, which is the normal operating mode. This one's stuck on int. Hopefully something that they are going to update in the future. Weather radar should of course have been on automatic already. You should have been somewhere close to 0, probably a little bit up for departure, a little bit down in cruise, but remember it's automatic anyway, so only when you turn the multi-scan off you would control the tilt manually. Okay, the middle is set. On the right hand side we can switch our transponder into above, and we are flying from the left seat, so we'll select transponder number 1, and with all of that done, let's go ahead, get that table out, and then we can start working on inserting our flight plan. Or so I would think. Here we go. Okay, great, so let's get going on this. We got Frankfurt to New York, alternate Philadelphia, is that correct? No. Should be KBDL. Interesting, why did it update Philadelphia? I think that was priority number 4 in my list. Okay, so KBDL. And we are gonna go with that. Lufthansa 400, 281 passengers, costing 30, flight level 340, that looks good. Then, for our departure, we're looking at runway 25 center, and we got the Oboka 3 Whiskey departure, which is that one here. So, Tempe insert. Then, for the arrival in the JFK, I am going to go with the Arnav 22 left. So, that's over here, Arnav Yankee 22 left. The star is the Parch 4 arrival, and we got no via for that one. No, that's down here, no via, and we're coming in from Plym, so let's select Plym. Alright, and Tempe insert. So, 7 hours and 22 flight time, but we haven't uplinked any of the winds yet. Now let's go ahead and have a look at the step altitudes. Those in the real world are not automatically uplinked. Again, I do think there is an option somewhere for this, but haven't found it yet. Okay, so flight level 360 at Vena, that's correct, and flight level 380 at Palu, that's also correct. All looking good. Then let's go to data, next page, and pilot routes. Now over here I would go store active flight plan. Unfortunately that thing is bugged at the moment, so we can't do that quite yet. Well then, for now, back to the secondary flight plan, and we got the Frankfurt emergency 5 point. And that's based on Frankfurt's 25 center with a 246 radial and 25 nautical miles. PBD insert. Then we can insert the holding 246 right hand turns in here as well. And finally, for an immediate return back towards Frankfurt, we can select an arrival to runway 25 center with the ILS Zulu approach insert. Okay, and this is all looking correct. So back to the flight plan page, let's go to the fix info page and draw the extended center line here. So Frankfurt 25 center, 246 and Frax 5, like this. Finally, let's return to the flight plan page. Now this is where in the real world I'd go to MCDU menu and then backup nav up here. And then in there I would find an easy overview of all the waypoints with their names and the coordinates right next to it. Unfortunately, that's currently not simulated in the ToLiss Airbus, so we have to do it the old-fashioned way. And if we're already working old-fashioned way, then let's go ahead and cross-check our SID as well with all those waypoints down here. What I'm simply going to do, put this to the plan mode, constraints on, and here we go. And that's all looking like the chart. Happy with that. Okay then, let's scroll all the way down to the North Atlantic waypoints. So we're starting over here at Vena, and then we got 55 north, 20 degrees west. So we're flying nut track alpha. Let's have a look at the track message. Here it is, track message. So we're starting at Vena then, 55 north, 20 west, 54 north, 30 west, 51 north, 40 west, 48 north, 50 west, and Nixo, and we got all of those. Then let's go ahead and cross-check the coordinates to make sure that the name actually matches what we got in here, and that looks correct at 20 west. Then we do have 30 west, that's correct as Well, then we got, no, we had 30, so we got 40 west. That is correct as well. 50 west is correct as well. So that's all looking fantastic. Okay, then we can close this up again and go on to the init page and init B. Zero fuel weight and CG in the real world are not uplinked automatically. Again, I do think it is an option, but not 100% sure there. In any case, the fuel on board is looking... Actually, is it? Yeah, 90 tons should be fine. But it tells me we are going to be overweight by 5 tons. Question is why. It probably has to be 261.1 in here, 264.6 on there. Interesting. Do we have the winds in? No, that's probably the problem. Okay, wind data is requested. Anything? No winds. Well, at least that explains why we got an incorrect running weight prediction there. But we can also quickly work on the fuel figures. Maybe that gives us a better prediction as well, because we are pretty surely not going to be there with an hour and 19 extra. So, contingency 2.3, alternate 4, and final 3.9, and the taxi is 0.8. So that's all in here. The only thing, we got block fuel incorrect as well, 90 tons. The only thing we do not have here right now is the cruise winds. Let's try that again. Because the one thing that we need is the cruise winds. Otherwise we can of course not get a correct estimate. But just to be 100% sure over there, 3,421 miles versus 3,423 miles. Just that ETOPS and that time en route can't be correct. It just doesn't have the wind. Well, we're going to uplink that again in cruise, and then it's hopefully going to work better. Okay, so from here let's go on to the performance. We got a flaps 2 takeoff, and then we've got 67 degrees flex temperature, and so that's F67. And then we've got takeoff speeds 51, 70, 75. Like this, thrust reduction and acceleration 1400 and 1400, and finally engine out acceleration 1900. Unfortunately, ToLiss does not simulate the derailed climb thrust. The real one does have that. And then we got Frankfurt's 2.5 center in here for an immediate return. 340, 333, 367, all looks fantastic. Okay, so that is looking good for now. Then everything is done with our setup. Up here we can just quickly go for plan mode again and ensure that the VORs are selected. We'll be climbing to flight level 70, and on the other end side constraints and VORs are selected as well. Okay, lovely. Then we're done with our setup, so let's go for the departure briefing. So threats for today's departure, don't really see any, to be honest. We are departing Frankfurt's runway 25 center on the Boca 3 Whiskey departure. Initially 7,000 MSA, 4,300, and extra fuel and time, yeah, plenty. About half an hour, make that 40 minutes including our reserves. Okay, so we will be taxiing out runway 25 center, threats, anything that has wheels underneath it, and for our departure we got a stop margin of 373 meters, and in case of an engine failure we continue straight out to the Frux 3 point, climbing 5,000, and then we can decide on the further course of action. An immediate return to Frankfurt is possible even at these weights. We are above the maximum landing weight. For anything that is not immediately life-threatening, we are just going to enter the holding and decide what we're going to do. For anything that is life-threatening, we are going to make an immediate return. 6 miles final since we're in IMC, and we need about 3.5 kilometers of runway. We have 4 kilometers available. In terms of specials for our departure today, the clean speed is 252. I don't really mind those 2 knots, so if we fly 252 that's fine. However, the slat retraction speed is 241, and we do have that 230 knot restriction here that goes all the way to PAPV. So we'll have to keep the flaps out all the way until we reach PAPV, okay? Yeah, apart from that, nothing non-standard, no threats. Anything from your side? No? Lovely, then that's our departure briefing completed. Okay, so cockpit preparation checklist, please. Gear pins and covers removed. Fuel quantity, we've got 89,900 kilograms, and those are balanced. Seatbelt on, ADRs, nav, and barrel ref. QNH 1022, cross-checked. Cockpit preparation checklist complete. Alright, so that lovely stuff is done. Then let's go ahead and get our airplane prepared. So 238.6 and 27.7. We got 238. We're 200 kilo slider, 27.7, like that, and we are all looking good over here. An hour and 46 extra. Yeah, definitely not. Really not sure what's going on with the wind uplink, why that's not working. Hey, look at that, it's just grayed out. I really don't know why. I suppose that's a classical case of no comment. Okay, so be it. So for our trim 30.4, and we calculate 30.4, that gives us a trim of up 2.0. Like that, and then we are basically good to go up here. Okay, so GSX, please prepare a position for pushback and departure. Then we can disconnect the external power. Ground surfaces, remove. Park and brake is set, so remove the chocks as well, please. Please do forgive me for not doing a walk around today. It's just too wet outside. Definitely a case for the first officer. Okay, lovely. Then we're all set up down here. So let's put that transponder on, let's put that beacon on, and then we can do the before start checklist. Park and brake. Set. Takeoff speeds and thrust. V1 151, VR 170, V2 175, flex 67. Windows closed. Beacon on. Before start checklist complete. Okay. So the door is closed, and then we are ready to go up here. So far, so good. Ground from cockpit. Please confirm that all doors and hatches are closed, the ground equipment is removed, and the bypass pin is installed. That's all confirmed, Captain. Okay, thank you. So we are ready to go over here and clear to push. Area 7, park and brake set. Roger that, Area 7, I call you back. So let's just go ahead and turn those taxi cameras on already. They're lifting us right now, then we'll be ready to push back in any moment. And look at that, exactly on time. 1000 is exactly the scheduled off block time. So Area 7, release park and brakes. Park and brake released. Thank you, start the pushback and stand by for the engines. Roger. And here we go. Lovely view with a tower in the background, isn't it? It's just that this airplane is too long. Like, if I zoom out far enough that I can actually see the nose, then we are barely seeing the rest of the airplane anymore. Okay, as soon as we clear the road down here, we can commence our engine start. And Area 7, that's over here. And we are clear of the roads. So ground flight deck, we'll be starting engines 1, 2, 3, 4 in that sequence, and we'll begin with engines number 1 and 2 now. So waiting for the flight deck to power, here we go. Engine 1 start. At 10% N3 we can go ahead with engine 2. So that's now, and engine 2 starts. So let's listen to this. Okay, that does sound rather stabilized to me. And indeed it is. So let's go ahead and start number 3. There's 10%, start number 4. And the pushback is completed, set brakes. Parking brake set. So now the engines are motoring. Now here's something Airbus specific that I've at least never noticed on Boeing aircraft. You'll see that once it injects fuel, it's still going to take a little while until we see the EGT rise up. Like, look at that. And now here we go. That's kind of interesting if you ask me, because what we see here, or at least what I would imagine, is that once fuel is injected and the ignition is on, it should kind of get warm immediately, shouldn't it? Because it should start burning in there immediately. But it does take a little while until the EGT responds. And gotta be honest, the 340 over here is quite a bit quicker than the A330 is. On the 330 it's even more noticeable. But hey. So ground, we've got forward engine starts. Please disconnect all the ground equipment and advise when clear. And then we'll see you on the right hand side with the pin, and have a good day. Bye bye. So that's the ramp agent. He is holding a pin like that. Fantastic. Okay, trim 30.4. That's roughly set down here. That's looking good. Kind of interesting that we hear the electrical transients when we turn the APU master switch off, because normally the AC generators should already have taken over earlier, but might have to have a look at the LIC AC page next time. Okay, in any case, that's 4 good starts. The clear signal is received after start checklist. Anti-ice, engine anti-ice on, ECAM status checked, pitch trim 30.2%, and radar trim neutral. After start checklist complete. Okay, flight control check. Full up, full down, neutral. Full left, full right, neutral. Rudder, full left, full right, and neutral. Okay, call for taxi please. Parking brake released. It does start rolling on idle. I do like that. And see it from the outside as well. Heavy aircraft, but also pretty high idle thrust. So, brake check. Pressure 0. So if you've got lots of time available, then you would taxi an Airbus widebody without any thrust. You may use a little to get it rolling. Once it's rolling, normally you don't need any power at all. So over to idle. Now here's where the taxi camera would be really useful, because it's such a long aircraft. So in order to be able to judge whether you are on the center line or whether you need to apply a little bit more or a little bit less overshoot, that's where the taxi camera would really be useful. Unfortunately, using that MSFS map API that they are using, it's not really giving us much of useful information at all. It would be nice if that could be updated in the future, but I think at the moment the simulator is not able to provide the required data, so that's probably the reason they did the way they did it. Now, something that I do notice while taxiing the A340 is that when going through a turn, look at the ground speed down here. We're taking the turn rather tightly here. We should be losing ground speed, but instead we're even accelerating. That should not happen. Normally when you go through a turn, you got quite the increased drag, and therefore the plane should start losing some speed. That's one of the main things you'll have to learn when you learn to taxi an Airbus widebody aircraft. Not so sure about the narrow bodies. At least the 737 wasn't that prone, but the widebody definitely is, and the 340 should be as well. It is a completely custom flight model. I do believe that includes the taxi model as well. At least you certainly do notice that it behaves a little different from what I would expect from most flight simulator aircraft. So I guess it's fair to say that it probably is a custom taxi model as well. So yeah, I do hope that they can just add that bit of drag when going through turns here. Okay, I've got no changes to the takeoff briefing. Anything from you? Nope. Alright. Nope, not you. Now here's something that ToLiss used to do already in X-Plane that I would kind of like to see an option for. That's the cabin check. Like, they're taking really long for the cabin to get ready. Fair enough, in the real world that can happen occasionally, but in this one it's happening like continuously. But you can accelerate this by just pressing cabin call button. Here you go, now they're ready. Okay, and with that, let's do the taxi checklist. Flight controls, checked. Flap setting, config 2, radar and PWS, on and auto, engine start selector, norm, ECA memo, takeoff, no blue. Taxi checklist, complete. So you can see I used a little bit of thrust to get it up to 25 knots, and that's about everything we need. So for now, let's just keep taxiing to runway 25 center. We can take intersection Lima 3, as we did calculate with 100 meters of intersection for our departure, so that's easy going. Since the A340-600 is such a long aircraft, quite a bit of oversteering is needed if you are going across a tight turn. And I'm going to show you that especially during the lineup on runway 25 center in a few moments. Okay, here we go, approaching Lima 3. One thing that I do like about the ToLiss is how precise the control of the brakes is. Once you got used to the way the brakes are reacting, you can really steer it nicely. So here we go, into Lima 3. Again, look at the incredible amount of oversteering needed here. Okay, we're clear on the approach. Cabin crew, prepare for departure. So, let's just do a proper lineup here. Just amazing, isn't it? That's checked. Okay, lineup checklist. Takeoff runway, 25 center, TCAS, TA PAX 1 and 2 off, lineup checklist complete. Okay guys, are you ready to go? Then give me that Oboka 3 Whiskey departure down here, please. And we can switch those off. Give me the armrest as well, and then I'd say takeoff. Command flag 67 SRS runway auto thrust blue. Thrust set. Something that I like about the ToLiss 100 knots is that it's really easy to steer it on the ground, just like a real airplane. That's something that a lot of flight simulator airplanes lack in, but the ToLiss steers really nicely. Very easy to maintain the center line here. Rotate. Also need the correct amount of backstick to get airborne. Positive climb, gear up. Nav checked. So it's an A340-600. That thing climbs quite a bit better than the 300, as you can easily see. 2,300 feet a minute here. Also note the lovely pitch power figures on departure with 12.5 degrees of pitch, just like it should be according to the manual. Thrust climb auto thrust. Remember the high S speed, we cannot retract the flaps at all at the moment. Alright, maintaining those 200 knots. Very easy to fly accurately. And pack 2 on. So we are going through a very light shower here. It doesn't even show on the weather radar. Don't be surprised about that. The shower is so light looking outside that we really got nothing to be worried about here. Okay, so let's climb to flight level 130. That's 13,000 blue. So now comes the hard part, 230 knot speed restriction, but we can actually not retract the flaps yet, so let's go to selected 205-ish. Remember, it's a maximum 230 speed restriction. Set standard. So on a cross check, passing flight level 5-1 now. Checked. So note that this airplane is equipped with an ice detector. When the engine anti-ice is on and the ice not detected message does not show, it just came up down here, then there is no sense turning the engine anti-ice off, because you would immediately get the message saying ice detected, engine anti-ice on. Luckily, right now the ice not detected message is already showing, so once we're through this cloud, provided that it's still there, we can then go ahead and turn the anti-ice off. Okay, we're past the puffy speed restriction, managed speed, flaps 1. Speed checked, flaps 1. Again, as you can see, very easy hand fly. perhaps a little too easy. Not 100% sure on that yet. But you need minimal input for the plane to respond really nicely, and that is definitely good. Okay, flap 0. Speed checked, flap 0. And here we are, all in clean config. Another small piece of a cloud coming up ahead over there, so I am going to keep that anti-ice on for now. Remember, engine anti-ice is normally used preventatively, while wing anti-ice is used reactionary. Alright, looks like we are going to stay clear though. Ice not detected is still there, so engine anti-ice off. And here we go, passing 100, climbing 130. Let's just get that nose down. Then we can also put the autopilot on. AP1. And then lights off, signs, yeah, can be turned off. No more constraints, so let's go for the airports, and then we can clear and copy the FMC. Okay, so here's that, everything clear down here. Secondary flight plan is a copy of the active, 340, 335, 369, that's all looking good. Alright, lovely. So all that good stuff is done. Then let's just go ahead and set that altitude a bit higher. Let's do 240. And then we just need to program our ETOPS waypoints. And then we are pretty much done with everything we need for the Atlantic crossing. So let's have a look at this. I'm going to start on data, next page, pilot waypoints, new waypoint. EEP1 for the ETOPS entry point number 1, and that's 54.7 north. Now, here's where things are getting fancy. For some reason, this FMS software version that they chose to model, which seems to be a very old one, which is a little strange because there are some modern buttons like the frequency load button from the CPDLC system, which is a very modern Airbus button. But yeah, for some reason you need to enter the coordinates like this. 5454.7/02124.8W. Like, normal Airbus software always want the letters at the front. So, kind of strange software version that they went for over here. They do claim that stuff like that's not a bug, so we'll believe them, but it's definitely not what you would find on the average A340. So let's save that, and then we also want the ETOPS exit point number 1, and that's 5030.8 north/04156.0 west. Okay, that's all stored. Then let's go back to the flight plan page and to the fix info page, EEP1. Then we got SNN Yankee Tango for the equal time point and EXP1. And what I'm also going to do is to go to data, then equal time point, and in here we are going to use Echo India November. Or actually, no, let's do it different. We are going to go for Keflavik and St. John's, and we are going to use that. So let's do one more attempt at a wind uplink. Look at that, it's all 0. Like, why is it that? All just 0. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. The average wind is going to be headwind of 62 knots. So I'm just going to do 270/62. Like that. And that's now automatically copied into any of the other waypoints. Okay, and that tells me arrival time 18:29 and the schedule is 18:50. 19.7, and that gets us down to a landing weight of, well, let's see, 20 tons. So we're burning 65. That one is 65 is 260 tons. So yeah, just about the max landing weight. So what we're going to do, just to ensure that we are actually inside the max landing weight, I do believe that we'll arrive with less fuel than this, because we have loaded less, but just be 100% safe here. Let's fly a little faster, like cost innings 150. That should use a little bit more fuel, and we should be just fine. Okay, cool. So that's absolutely everything that we could do for the time being. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight with us, and then I see you all on the other side when we start the approach into New York. Alright everyone, we are on the approach into New York, and we are looking at some absolutely lovely weather conditions in New York. But first of all, let's take a quick moment to talk about the descent that you've just seen and some of the things that just happened with VNAV, as there have been a few issues that we went over while we were descending over here. So first of all, you have seen that we've probably leveled off prior to trade, which had a level 240 restriction, and VNAV kind of let us down and then made us fly level for some 6 miles before we had to initiate a further descent. Now that can make sense if you've got a speed reduction, but only if you have a speed reduction. So let's take a look into what it's doing right now, because there are again some interesting indications over here. So we do have Calverton, that's at 12,250 knots. Now we're about to reach 12,000, then we still have to slow the airplane down. But what's strange here is you got the magenta level of arrow at Calverton, but what's going on over Roper over here? Like, you have that second level of indication prior to the continued top of descent. Now it is absolutely correct, especially for an old Airbus system, that you got another top of descent up here, but what's really strange is that we got 2 level off arrows for the same altitude. So either it does not plan to reach Calverton at 12,000, which would have been the restriction we entered over Calverton, like here you can see it again, 12,000, and it does plan to be there at 12,000, or it's not going to be, or it doesn't predict to be able to make the speed, but as you can see, it does. So there is something strange going on here that doesn't really make sense with the 2 level of arrows that you see indicated on the systems over here. But anyway, that's just something that I thought is worth mentioning over here, because, well, most advanced Airbus systems simulation on the market, as they proclaim themselves. Alright, now let's go ahead and have a look into what we are gonna do for our approach in New York. We got wonderful weather over there. Namely, the wind is 270 at 26, gust 39, 10 miles visibility in light rain, scattered clouds, broken clouds, overcast clouds, 6 degrees, 2952. And the wind at a little higher altitude is 260 at 39, just to make it fun. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go right down and have a look. And by the way, why is it still in thrust descent? It should maintain those 250 knots here. Well, now it's changing the speed holster. Now it is accelerating again. But look at how the second top of descent is vanishing now. That shouldn't happen. It should still keep that, because obviously it wants to continue the descent at some point. Okay, in any case, let's have a look into our landing calculation. So we got New York's John F. Kennedy Airport over here, runway 22 left. This is going to be a wet runway, and due to the temperature, the engine anti-ice is going to be on. At 259 tons landing weight, which is accurate for now. Might even be a little bit less, like 258 or so when we start the actual approach. Let's add 5 knots of the approach over here, and then we can compute this. And as you can see, we need about 1,800 meters landing distance here. Remember, we're at max landing weight with low auto brakes selected, so I'm a little honest, I would have expected to need a little bit more landing distance here. Like, yeah, we do have a strong headwind here, 18 knots with the gusts even a little bit more, but well, this is the lowest possible auto brake setting. I think you get where I'm going with this. In any case, we will do this and see how the airplane is actually going to behave. Now for the approach, we are going to fly the RNAV Yankee approach. Unfortunately, down here in the recent charts, it's not pinning anything anymore after this longer flight. So we just have to, you know, work without that for now. But let's have a look at the chart. So the approach starts at Zalpo in 1800, and we're going down to an LF-VNAV minima of 419. The plane is not capable of LPV operations. And then for the go-around, we go straight ahead to Fola, and then on a 188 track to Chant, kilometer 3000. And in here we've got Zalpo, 3-degree glide slope, then straight ahead Fola, Chant, 3000. And that's pretty much that. Now, does that track look accurate? Like on 188 track to Chan and hold. Look at that. Follow to Chan, track 012. We can clearly see on the ND that this is like 170-ish? 175 maybe? That track does not seem quite accurate there. But okay, we'll just take it, no further comment. Alright, apart from that, JFK 2 to left is in there. We've filled out the approach page, and it is going to be a config full landing, 156 knots approach speed, and for the missed approach, everything is in. Extra fuel time, 56 minutes, which is pretty much what we wanted. And with that weather, most certainly justified taking that much extra over here as well. Quite the strong headwind still, 12,000, and look at that, 102 knots. Now, what is interesting is that the wind you see on the left PFD is not equal to the wind you see on the right PFD. You can see 107 versus 108. And that is realistic because of the drift of the IRSs. You'll notice the same with the ground speed being somewhat different when we are taxiing in at New York. So that's actually not a bug, that is a feature. Okay, so with all of that in mind, let's go ahead and do the approach briefing, and I think we can already continue our descent. Let's go down to something like 8,000 here. I'm gonna do that with vertical speed. So, vertical speed, and alt 8,000 blue. So we are about to enter the clouds. What's the temperature? 10. Well, by the time you enter clouds it normally drops a bit, so let's go ahead and turn that anti-ice on. Also, I'm gonna turn the lights on already. Cool, so let's go ahead and do the approach briefing and see what we are gonna be up to. So, following the Part 4 arrival in New York, radar vectors for an hour-and-a-half Yankee approach runway 22 left. MSA 2,900 and the minimum is 419. The go around straight ahead via the 2 waypoints. They look correct on the MD, even though the track indication in the FMS is wrong. Kilometer 3000. Extra fuel and time, we are looking at 55 minutes. Now the approach is going to be flight director guided with config full and maximum reverse, auto brake low. Stop margin for the landing run is 567 meters. Vacate the runway to the right, and we got one hotspot that's crossing runway 2 to right on our way in. Apart from that, I've got nothing special, I've got nothing non-standard over here, and for the threats for the arrival, the main one is QNH blunder error, so let's go ahead and verify the QNH once more. That's 29052 down here, and 29052 is indeed set 3 times. Okay. Apart from that, strong winds for our first landing, so we just gotta keep that in mind. If this was a real flight, well, if this was a real flight, training as a captain, you would probably have to do the landing. Training as a first officer, the captain would probably take over. They wouldn't make you do a landing. Do your first landing, you know, right at the maximum crosswind. But it's gonna be fine. I'll have a little bit of fun here, so just don't expect it to be a smooth landing or something. It is going to be a textbook landing that we will do. Okay, and that's all I got. Anything from your side? No? Alright, and that's the approach briefing completed. So let's descend 4,000, and that's 4,000 blue. Now let's do a right-hand turn, heading 310-ish. Heading. And speed, vertical speed. So extend that, actually let's make that heading 300. Okay, extend the center line. That's looking good. Insert, pull map, pull heading. Here we go. Okay, with that strong wind, might as well turn left another 5 degrees. Or even another 5, so like 290. That should be it. Okay, so we went through 10,000, light signs, ethers. Oh, what is that flickering up here on the windshield? Interesting. Anyway, light signs, ethers, and then we've got GPS primary within high accuracy, and the engine start selector is in norm. That's our 10 checks complete. Temperature 11 degrees. I'm going to keep anti-ice on anyway, just because we are expecting it to get a little bit colder. on the approach still, especially when we do start slowing her down a little later on. Still some very strong winds, 77 knots down here. You can see we've got a crab angle of 15 degrees. Normally when the crab angle is at 15, it tells you that you're above the crosswind limit, but obviously that only counts on the short final when the winds are close to what they're going to be on the ground. But that's a nice little rule of thumb that you can use in many airliners. Alright, approach checklist please. Barrel ref, QNH 29052, seatbelts on, minimum MDA 419, auto brake, low, and engine mode selector norm. Approach checklist complete. Here we go. Yeah, a little unfortunate that we have that bug that it is no longer showing us the previously pinned charts, or rather previously used charts, as it can't pin any. But yeah, that bug just seems to be there after a long flight, so not all that much that we can do about it. Okay, let's descend altitude 3000 and go into open descent here. Thrust dial open descent 3000 blue. So that we can level off, reduce our speed, and then turn on to the approach. We need 6 miles to lose the altitude, then we got 1.5 to lose some speed, but with that headwind I'm not worried at all. It might look like we're flying a fast approach, but believe me, we're not. Okay, so I think we're pretty clear here. Temperature is 8. But yeah, after the left turn we'll probably re-enter the icing area, so I am going to leave anti-ice on. Oh no, Ross, what are you doing? I don't think so at all. Let's just get the weather one more time. Meta, KJFK 2952. So that is definitely correct. Okay, activate approach phase. Okay, speed out star, and I've just pressed the heading button, so nav blue, so that we do start slowing down. Flaps 1. Speed checked. Flaps 1. Alt. Okay, final blue. Approach nav. So, would you please maintain the altitude? Here we go, final approach. And flaps 2. Speed checked. Flaps 2. So, go around altitude 3000 set. So, would you kindly start the descent and follow the VDEF? Here we go, looking good. So the wind is mostly cross right now. Let's see on the latest Meta, it's still 270 at 26 gust 39. Checked. Alright, gear down. Flaps 3. Speed checked, flaps 3. So, it looks like there is a little bit of precipitation over the airport. We don't see any of that on the weather radar for now. Flaps full. Speed check, flaps full. And just a little calculation here, landing performance 270. If we go 39, what are we gonna get? 28 knots cross. Landing checklist, ecam memo, landing no blue. Landing checklist complete. So, the maximum crosswind limit is 35 knots on a wet runway, according to what I can find. Unfortunately, don't have an A340-600 AFCOM. We are at 28, including the gusts, so that should be alright. Interesting that the weather radar doesn't give us any return. The brightness is definitely up. And the radar is on. So 4 degrees, it does say ice not detected, which is totally fine. Remember, anti-ice is always used preventatively, so even if there is no icing, that's still fine. We wouldn't switch it off or anything. Checked. I'm going to keep the autopilot engaged for a little bit because we do want to focus on seeing the runway, but there it is, approach lights in sight. Okay, nice. Then let's have some fun. Do notice that when we're disengaging the auto thrust here, the autoflight auto thrust limited message does come a little early. It should give it a bit of time there. Checked. Okay then, let's fly ourselves into the Poppy. Flight directors off, bird on. That Poppy doesn't seem that accurate. Looking outside, we are on a nice 3 degree glide, aren't we? No, that Poppy isn't accurate. Okay. We touched down on the 10 call. Oh, such a typical flight sim problem. So, spoilers, reverse green, decel. I hate it when the radio altimeter isn't accurate. Okay, manual brakes. And here we are, welcome to New York's John F. Kennedy Airport. As mentioned, a little positive touchdown, to be honest, a bit more positive than I would have hoped. But I'm gonna rewatch the landing later on. It felt like it's at 10, then we touched down, then it's at 5, which obviously shouldn't be. The radio altimeter is built to give you the height of your main wheels, not, for example, the nose wheel, which is what I'm kind of suspecting might be happening there. So, taxi camera here in New York, a little bit better than it is over in Frankfurt. It is using the map API of the standard simulator, even though I gotta say we are pretty much on the center line now, and this does show us a little bit to the left of the center line. Here too. Let's just go outside. No, we're right on it. I was about to say, that felt a little strange. So, the data that the map API returns is probably not the same that we have as the visual model in here. Alright, just gotta accept that. Nothing we can do about it now. So let's turn strobes off for now, even though we'd probably get clearance to cross runway 2 to right, like any moment. Okay, so clear to cross, 2 to right. Then the right side is clear, the left side is also clear. Let's go.
Approaching runways.
Nope, just a single one, not several runways. On the ground, RAS should usually do that a bit better, but remember, RAS is not part of the A340-600, it's an external add-on. Alright, so it's no longer raining here, so let's go ahead and turn the anti-ice off, and then we're going to taxi over Terminal 1, Gate 5. So, Terminal 1, Gate 5, handling by Shitport, and here we are. Okay guys, so let's talk a little bit about our flight. Now, we gotta keep one thing in mind. This is a version 1.0. This has just been released. Even though ToLiss and even the ToLiss 340-600 has been around for a little while, we gotta keep in mind that this is their first step in a Microsoft Flight Simulator. So let's not be too harsh with the review. However, there are a couple of bugs in there. Even some of the stuff that I would expect to be some of the stuff that I would expect to be different based on the earlier X-Plane experience with them. But overall, I think we can say that this is an enjoyable plane to fly. It still has a couple of bugs every here and there. Things like the chart clip not working, like VNAV leveling off a little early in the descent there. But overall, definitely an enjoyable plane, and I'm sure that it is going to see lots of updates so that we will be able to enjoy it to the fullest, like soon. I think we can definitely say that it is planned to be a study level aircraft. It does show a lot of those traits as well, so I'm kind of positive about it. I just hope that Aerosoft is going to get their stuff up rather soon. Now, one nice thing just to mention it here. Compare the ground speed on the left and on the right nav display. You can notice that they're about 2 knots apart right now. 2 knots actually isn't all that much. In the real world, I've seen it be apart by up to 10 knots. Usually after landing of a flight of this length, like 8 hours 15 flight time, it can easily be spread by some 5 knots or so. It will also depend on the heading that you're going, because this is driven by the IRS, and the IRS is drifting after a flight like this, so it will give you different data there. That's quite the nice feature. First time I actually do see it in the simulator, and believe me, when you are transitioning from a narrow body aircraft like a 737 onto a wide body where the entire picture and everything is looking so incredibly different, and then you are trying to taxi based on the ground speed readout to get used to what the speed feels like from the height in which you're sitting in this airplane, and this is quite the annoying thing. But yeah, it's not a bug, it's a feature. Alright, APU is coming on, lights are going off, after landing checklist, radar and PWS off, after landing checklist complete, and then let's turn into gate number 5. Lots of oversteering required here. But again, tight space for maneuvering. And here we are. So is that guidance system working? Yep. What was that? Nope, I didn't intend to stop here. Look at that, 0 knots on the right side, 3 knots on the left. Come on, another meter or two, provided that that is going to indicate anything. But I'm not too sure it does. I'm gonna stop over here. Okay, parking brake set, APU bleed on and shut down. Cabin crew, all doors in park. Okay, and here we go. The engines are running down. Then beacon off and request deboarding, please. Slides are disarmed. So now come all those fuel pumps. I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, good. Parking checklist. Parking brake trucks, brake set, engines off, fuel pumps off, parking checklist complete. Alright, let's do some of the after landing stuff here. Ground services, trucks in place, external power A connect. In most places they don't really give you 2 external power units. A single one usually does the job as well. Okay, then we can shut the APU down as well. Alright, so transponder 2000 and standby. Fuel. We've used 71.4 and we were supposed to use 74.8. That's interesting. So, despite flying lower, despite flying a lot faster than planned, we used some 3 tons less than we were supposed to use. Well, that probably indicates a problem with the ToLiss bus. And just by looking at the fuel page, I think we should have turned those off as well. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, yeah, so is the fuel usage accurate? Not 100% sure, because we should really have used more than that. 8 hours 15 flight time versus 8 hours 31. Okay, that does make a difference. 15 minutes should be about 2.3 tons. But then we've still used a ton less fuel than we should have, despite flying lower and faster to stay within the maximum landing weight. So yeah, that's an interesting one. That is an interesting one indeed. Okay, nonetheless, that is copied. Then let's delete any of those waypoints. Pilot element retained. Huh. It shouldn't do that after landing, only after the flight plan has been uplinked. But right now there is no plan in the system, so then it should delete everything. One more thing to look at, and that's the drift of the IRSs. Now these have been running pretty good down here, but you can see IRS 1 has drifted 3.1 miles, IRS 3 0.5. So the data from number 1 is what you see here, data from number 2 is what, number 3 is what you see there. Actually from number 2, but you get where I'm going with this. So yeah, you're parking, it shows you 2 knots ground speed. That's not a bug, that's a feature. And yeah, I'd say with that, welcome to New York's John F. Kennedy Airport. I do hope you enjoyed the flight. Leave your feedback in the comments underneath. As you can see, compared with my first impression of the aircraft, the second impression is a little bit better. Well, it is quite a bit better. Just don't fly it at night until they have actually fixed that virtual cockpit textures. Now, this is kind of expected. I mean, it's ToLiss in the systems, so obviously once the systems got more involved, it would be a better aircraft. That was kind of to be expected. So yeah, here we got it, the ToLiss A340-600. We're definitely going to see some more flights with this one. So thank you for watching. As always, like, comment and subscribe. And if you really love what I'm doing on the channel, would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, and then I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.